You're listening to a Meatsmith Harvest. This is the podcast that encourages and equips you to grow your home around the harvest. This Farmstead Meatsmith production is made possible by you. If you like it, please consider supporting our team by going to patreon.com/Meatsmith and donating at a level you'd enjoy giving at. Your gift helps us increase the quality and quantity of all our free media education. Thank you, and happy harvesting. Hello, Brandon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello, Meatsmiths. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. What did you do this morning?
I ran some errands to get some... What did I do? Oh, we're dealing with our upload speed. This is a very, agricultural problem encountered by peasants throughout centuries. It's the problem of upload speed. We're trying, our house has a very low upload speed.
Yeah.
We're out here in this little pocket of fir trees and our upload speed is very slow. So we have to go to the public library to upload large files. So I did some of that today. And I got some materials, some fasteners for making a bench. We're going to replace our pew that is at our dining room table, on which we scrunch all of the butts of our children during meals. We're going to switch it to a bench, which is more precarious. So we're hoping that the imperative to balance yourself will contain the wigglies of the children more than the pew, which has lots of support and back support and armrests, because that just becomes a jungle gym.
And it only has 2 entry points.
Right. So you basically have to crawl under the table to get into the pew.
Or over your brother's head.
Right.
Yeah.
And that precipitates some conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
We're trying to minimize conflict right now.
Yeah. And I had to pick up some duck feed because we're in the middle of discerning when to harvest our ducks. We have kind of the whole spectrum of duck genetics exemplified on our farm. I've got hybrid layers who are tweaked and manufactured to lay as much eggs as possible, and then I have pekins who are designed to grow as quickly as possible, and then I have muscovies who are loosely designed to do everything sort of well. And we're going to eat all the muscovies, and we're going to eat the pekins. And we're right past the 9-week mark with the pekins, which means we are in the pocket from 8 to, I think, 10 weeks is the pocket where they're going to have the least amount of tiny little feathers, which makes the scald and the pluck actually doable. Because if you miss that window, it's ridiculous. And granted, I have developed an undue degree of impatience about the slaughtering of poultry because I have done thousands and thousands and thousands. And it's not unwarranted, though, because if you set out to slaughter 50 birds in a day by yourself with, backyard setup 2.0, just a little bit better than what most people might have, then it's a significant task, and you can die that day by 1,000 wounds.
Right.
If there's a few things that don't line up, if there's a few minutes that you have to waste at one particular step 50 times, pretty soon you're doing it by headlamp, and it's horrible. So I have this fear of when I scald and I pluck a bird and it's not just perfect, clean, featherless carcass, my heart explodes a little bit.
Right, because it's not just that bird. You're thinking,
right,
and I have 50 more
times
of these.
50.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we're only times 10 because we have a very small batch. Nonetheless,
the PTSD is still there.
Yeah, it's real. It's real.
The reaction, yeah.
So I slaughtered 2 yesterday, and they still had some, large quills that were very young feathers, which makes me think I've almost missed the window already.
Oh.
But I know that if they get a little bigger, then they will get a purchase on the fingers of the plucker. They'll get a purchase.
Right.
they were too small for that because I could pull them all out individually, which is crazy. So I feel like another week they'll get a little longer. And
that's the duck feed because we needed to let them grow.
Correct. Yes, we're having to purchase the duck feed a little longer. So, and then the Muscovies, we're still kind of waiting for I think after about 10 weeks to 16 weeks in theirs, where the Muscovies will have their magic window of being fully fledged without any horrible little downy feathers. You just got to find it. So I've left the duck slaughter equipment out, kind of ready to go. And I've been, occasionally after the 10-week, 9-week, 8-week mark, slaughtering a duck here and there to see if we're there.
Yeah.
We're just not there yet.
Not there yet. Yeah. Well, this is kind of actually an interesting episode. It's an interesting dynamic having a little Instagram live feed right now. Hello, Instagram followers. Thanks so much for joining us. It adds a different element. Just in speaking to you, I'm like, there's people on, and
it's actually live.
Yeah, it's live.
Right.
There's something happening. It's I don't know. It's more exciting. Whereas when I'm just talking with you, I'm thinking, oh, that could be edited out, or I don't know. It's just exciting. There's people in the conversation right now. So if there's anyone that can they say anything to us?
They can indeed.
Oh,
right now they are waving.
They're waving. Oh yes, I see the little wave. Okay.
Yes, but they could. If they wanted
this
to.
was going to be originally a grab bag episode, and I've kind of massaged it into not being that. But if there's a question in there that pops up and it catches your eye, and then maybe we could address one or two of those.
Definitely.
We can turn this into a grab bag episode, because I wanted to start with a question from a YouTube comment that came through, and then sort of weave our way into the main body of the content today. But I guess I'll start there.
Yeah.
We let's see. The last couple of episodes have been rather technical.
Yeah.
They've been rather niche, rather narrow in focus. We talked about pig killing, and then pig scalding and scraping, or just dehairing in general.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. I'm amazed that two people can talk about that subject for so long.
Yeah, it's kind of my magnum opus.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I guess today I wanted to go a different route then, and sort of maybe pull back, get a more wide lens view. Yeah. Rather than so focused.
Specific.
Yeah. And might go more philosophical. We'll see. But and what triggered it was a question that actually came through on Instagram, a post that we posted a few days ago. The picture was of our family sitting at a dining room table, and it was a beautiful picture, a beautiful moment that was captured by Andrew a year or two ago, and everything looked serene and ordered and happy, which of course we know that it's not always. Yeah. But I do like that every once in a while we get this glimmer, the light shines through the clouds, and it's like, this is why we're doing it. And we had a great response to that post, and maybe I'll read it actually. It'll turn into, it was a couple of questions, but so we'll address this question, and then we'll respond to a couple more grab bag questions. How about that? Okay. So the question came from Bruce Party of 6, which is one of our followers on Instagram. So thank you very much for the question. Okay, now I'm already a homemaker. I'm hanging on by the thread of my tattered apron. Where do I start? My garden was a huge flop, garden in quotes. It feels like my chickens will never lay an egg, and I can't figure out how to make the rain barrels so I don't get a bunch of gunk in them from the roof. Any pointers? And
No, I think that's it. You got it.
That struck a chord with me, because we obviously relate to that. Yeah. All the projects that you want to do to improve your land, all the things that you think you already have in place that should be running themselves, they don't work. And something new that you want to explore, that fails. So, what's a girl to do? What's a homesteader to do?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's the conflagration of, hey, we're going to grow all of our own food, and we're going to have an indefinite number of children, which means like a lot. and we're gonna be self-employed. At least that's the shape that the has taken in our case, that our life has taken. And I think that you made me think of this just when you were describing the photo that Andrew Plotsky captured,
Right.
farmrun.com. And as a glimmer, like the clouds parted, and that's actually not, I disagree.
Okay.
The crazy, because I feel that too. We've got, several close friends that are also larger families with younger children, which is an important element there, and who are, thriving. Their business is dependent upon the new agrarian renaissance, basically. And so I can see them from the outside of their family. And that vision is not, it's actually not just a glimmer. Like it looks right all the time. That's the crazy thing. And you only don't notice that when you're in it. And so much of it is just stepping outside a little bit for a little perspective. Because like when Andrew took that picture of our family around the table, it's like, actually, we sit around the table 3 times a day, all of us. And it's not, like chimes and harmonious music and yes please and thank you and oh what a lovely liver pate, father.
Quite.
It's not, it's not all that, to be sure. But it does happen 3 times a day. And so often when I can just like step out for a second, and look down upon our family as if I am not right in the middle of it, I get that vision, of, oh, everything is working. And it's tricky, I think, for conscientious people especially, which maybe Bruce relates to. And I think people that tend to choose this lifestyle have super high standards for themselves anyway, because they can't help but be hyper productive and like, oh, we're going to grow all of our own food, and hey, maybe we could turn it into a side business, and I can keep my normal job, and we can raise lots of children, and we can homeschool them. Like, whoa. And, that's just like given, like, we'll just do all that, because you're productive, you're diligent, and you will shame yourself into, oblivion if you don't at least do some of those things. So I think that a lot of this is forgiving yourself a little bit. And at least for me, I've had to realize that it has forced me to re-examine the ends for which I wanted to obsess over fava beans and plant more than any human ever has, and see how they grow in the winter and in the spring, and dried and fresh. Like I have so many agrarian projects, I can't even begin to list them on our little 2.5 acres here. But it's through force, not through wisdom. I've had to order them. And there's a grace in that, such that you realize we're actually kind of doing it. It is happening. Whereas if you don't have that telos, that end goal to which it all points, then it's really easy to be scrupulous, because then you observe everything as a fragment and as its own little failed venture, like capturing the rainwater, or for me, holistically clearing my land by the multi-generational employment of a goat that is a hybrid that I create for my specific property. Like, that's how I wanted to clear my land, right? And if that doesn't happen, it's like, oh, failed, bad self, didn't do it. But if you step back, like, wait, was I really trying to create a goat breed to clear my property?
Sure.
Right? How long was that going to take? You realize that some of those projects, if they're isolated from the goal, from the telos, they cannibalize themselves and everything else. And they become, it's like what a fetish is, it's like just this little part. And this is how I've experienced it. You fetishize this little part because it's so important and it is so right. And you're probably right. Of course it is. That is how it should be done. But it really helps to have a hierarchy of values there and to order it within a larger scheme. And so a manageable farm plan is really good. And for me, it's like I feel like there's this particular thing that you stumble into when you have a family, more so than, this heroic conviction that you take on. You stumble into it just by biology. You care so much for your kids,
right?
That provides an ordering that's really clear.
Yeah.
Fortunately, and it's nice. And so when I've had to let go of projects, and I've had to let go of so many, I'm gonna try not to make the whole podcast all of my failed projects, because that would be super easy.
We could do that.
Oh, so easy. We could do 5 podcasts on that.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was gonna say, but it's when I've stopped those particular projects, those particular goals towards holistic management or growing this or having a garden every year, which we absolutely don't. When I stop those things, there is this, it becomes so apparent that it must end, that there is absolutely no uncertainty about it, which is kind of nice. And because the goal, the well-being of my children, of our family, which is really a long-term goal, much longer than this very temporal goal to even clear my property. It's a much longer-term goal. That gives me so much confidence when I latch onto that goal and clarity to just boop, let's cut that appendage off. We're going to end that project. And it's always an end. You end it in hope, right?
Right.
It's not like you have to admit that you were wrong or something. It's just a timing thing. Like for me, it's always been a realization that, I'm playing the long game. We're going to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, I tend to be here for the rest of my life on this property. And if it's going to, if anything here, any of our work with Meatsmith or the way we care for the land is going to endure at all, it's going to be multi-generational. It's going to go beyond me. And it's the essential element to that game is that your children like you. You have a good relationship with your kids.
Yeah.
They see the life you live and they think, I choose that. So it's just a longer game, and it really helps you, or that's helped me cut off some unnecessary appendages.
Yes.
Not because they're wrong. It's just the timing isn't.
Well, you bring up a good
right.
point, because you think about, okay, what's the end goal?
Yeah.
Is the goal really to know where our food comes from? Which is a phrase that's used everywhere.
Yeah, right.
Is the goal really to eat perfect food?
Yeah.
Those are goods, and we definitely strive after them.
Yeah.
However, I have been looking at it lately, and I'm the first to let this go out the window, because you get myopic and frustrated at the current situation or whatever. But perhaps it's to be a good human. That's one of the best things that you can strive to be. And for us, we have determined that the way to that end is to surround ourselves with land and a home life, a household. You could spend a whole podcast just dissecting that word, household. Yeah. But that is actually cultivating us as we are cultivating it. And almost, in this, jujitsu way, like it is harvesting us, and it is like forming us into better humans. Yeah. And so that we don't, so we have someone to hand it off to that likes us, like we're leaving a legacy, right? So part of that is not just a perfect property and estate maybe or whatever, but we have friendships and family that come after us and that have benefited from our personhood.
Yeah, and in that sense, it's almost, there's this passive element to it. If the goal is to be, a better human, there is a way in which just the bare, naive, uncalculated commitment to a piece of earth and to a particular family life, just commitment to those things, unschooled, naive as it may be, those will shape you. That will cultivate you almost more than you are the active agent cultivating what is around you. Yeah. And it's this mutual cultivation that happens of place and person, of subject and object that is beneficent.
Yeah.
it's good. It goes in a good direction, even if you aren't the direct agent of every single step making it happen and like, oh, we're achieving the vision. And there will be some of that. And I think there's even a season of that, like particularly maybe before kids come, or while that you can still strap them to your back. And then maybe after, when they're old enough to not just to actually be help, you know. So there's time for all of it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I was just going to say something and I lost my words, but yeah, it's the will, the personal will. I've found in my own experience, the times where I can step back and I go, oh, I wasn't an a-hole there. Right? Which is few and far between sometimes, you know? And I don't think it's okay to like acknowledge that in yourself. Like, oh, I actually bent over backwards for this person rather naturally. And, or, you know, especially with your kids, like they're just constantly in your way. Yeah. And so, oh, I didn't actually shove my round peg through their square hole. Like I stepped back and I didn't, and those moments happen like at the cost of my will. Yeah. And then I find out, oh, I kill two birds with one stone. Yeah. And I'm kind of going around in circles here, but there's more to it than just achieving a perfect rain barrel system, or for us, like fencing. We still don't
get the damn ducks to lay an egg.
Exactly. Yeah. Or can we just have fencing, please? There's more involved here, and I want to be more aware of how I'm growing too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, you know, it's the adage that the journey is the destination. Right. I mean, you're doing it. Yeah. There is no solution, you know, like one thing. It's you're doing it. Yeah. And I think that a lot of the reasons a lot of those projects fail, even if you're not aware of it, it's because you are actually putting your energies and your time and your heart into more important things. Mm-hmm. Even if you're, you know, not conscious of that in the moment, it's, well, your children smile a lot. Yeah. And they laugh and they're happy. And it's like, that's definitely taking a lot of your time and energy. Mm-hmm. And the ducks aren't going to lay as soon as they ought as a result. And that is okay.
Well, and that's the whole concept of pruning, right? Which is cultivating, it's an art in the world of cultivating trees and hedges and things, is, you know, it feels hard in the moment, but it's actually doing everyone a service when you cut back on all those projects and you reorient your time, your space, and everything for the good of the other, for the good of, you know, the people around you,
the little others. And there's even this amazing like function in human people that is how we develop character. It's so hard because it is pruning. And you always hear, you know, that metaphor of it's thickening the branch. You know, the more pruning you do, it's just thickening where the branch connects to the trunk so that it can eventually hold more. And I know for sure that, you know, I have had to give up a lot of projects because they didn't work for various reasons, because the demands of family life, you know, took away energy. But it's also because I am not ready for them. Right. Which is a difficult, humiliating thing to recognize. Being ready to do a project is not just conceptualizing it accurately, like, and having all the reasons, right? Because that's kind of easy. Like, you can go on a permaculture forum and read 15 biodynamic books and you could lay it out. And yes, it's all correct. But there is this internal, you know, element of character that is underneath all of that. And this is how I've experienced it, is that because I get it all so polished conceptually as this thing I'm going to do in the future and so justified, I tend to gluttonize that. I become a glutton and I can't get enough of that vision. And that's like the crazy dynamic of the fetish. I'm going to fetish this and pursue it, or like a mania, you know, which is, again, like, how much are you going to sacrifice to that mania? It's a disordered obsession. Whereas if you're forced to delay it, you don't lose any of the polish of the concept and the accuracy and the truth and the goodness and the beauty of your vision, you actually become better able to bear it and execute it for the right ends. At least that's what I'm hoping.
No, we have history bearing witness to this, I think.
Yeah.
I think this is how communities built themselves up. And yeah, we have huge precedents that we're following in this. That's what the concept of pruning and sacrifice and all these things are all about. And you mentioned being correct, right? Like we are people who are conscientious. They're obsessed sometimes with being correct. But that's like what got the Pharisees in trouble, right? Is they were too correct. And,
it makes you scrupulous.
Right. And so we don't want to be like that. We want to be open to what the present moment is giving you, because that's what's going to drive things forward in the way that will leave keep everyone happy and everyone keep wanting more.
Yeah,
you know?
it helps you be a little more docile and receptive.
That's the word, yeah.
Rather than coercive,
There you go.
of your surroundings. And I think that is why I love the symbolism and all the meaning in cultivation, because it is this meeting of the person and the earth. It's not this coercion or this exploitation of the person over the earth. And it means that you're docile to the signals that you're getting, around you.
Sure.
You're receptive, and you respond to them, and you work with the forces rather than imposing your well-defined goals upon them. And I just think Cultivate captures that really well.
I think it's good to have plans, and like this person wants their rain barrel system to work, and their ducks to lay the eggs. What was the third thing? I just related too well. The tattered
garden.
Abraham, their garden wasn't even a garden,
Yeah, us too.
Our non-existent garden that is perfectly fenced with deer fence around it, but there's nothing in it but pooping ducks.
Yes.
And just teasing us,
Yeah, right. Yeah. Blasted earth in there right now.
Yeah.
There is not a single thing growing in our garden. By that I mean not a green leaf.
Yeah.
Not one. Nothing.
The ducks are like
the moon.
Yeah. They're pushing their necks through the fence to get the green on the other side.
There's a foot of that outside of the fence too, which is quite an achievement in the Pacific Northwest. To denude green of any patch of earth in the Pacific Northwest takes active, intense energy. And so we've achieved something special there, to be sure.
So going back to that picture that they were referring to, I like that you were saying that's not it. That's actually not, I mean, it's hard to get away from on social media showing your best moments.
Oh,
because
right,
they're inspiring and they're encouraging,
Yeah.
and they actually do. I think there's a purpose. There's a reason for them.
Oh,
there's
yeah. It's an icon
There you go.
of the good life. Yeah.
Right. But it actually reminds me of the 80-20 principle that we've been kind of discovering, which you can look it up and find it on Google pretty easily. But the 80-20 principle is this idea that 80% of your outputs, the consequences,
Productivity.
right, come from 20% of your inputs in whatever form. This is money or, the time that you spend. And so I think that's also the way it is. It's actually more like 99-1 for for our family life, getting a shot, getting a picture, a glimpse, a glimmer of order and serenity and
I really think it is. If it doesn't feel in the moment when you're in it like order and serenity, you might be wrong.
Yeah,
like it actually is. And
I see.
I mean, that's how I feel when I see other families or just I have this when I come home from work, I'll have that vision of our family.
And I'm in the middle of it,
right?
So I don't always see it.
And you're exhausted, and you have so many things in your head. It's usually a result of the, what we burden with ourselves with conceptually. It's the chaos in the mind, not necessarily of the surroundings.
Right.
That makes that seem like just this little glimmer of one instant where we could snap a photo of the good life. It's like, no, it's actually almost all the time. It's really good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's this, yeah. So quieting the mind a little bit.
Yeah. It's
Which-
just nosce te ipsum.
What does that mean?
Know thyself.
Oh, yes. Yeah. No, and that's what a farmer, I mean, there's so many, you go online, you type in philosophical farming, and like so many small farmers are also blogging in beautiful ways, because who else but the farmer has gained this wisdom, and the householder, I would say, of the earth, you know, as you're tilling the field, you're gaining a peace and a wisdom that, you know, you take in the home and out the home. And it's just like, I mean, I guess I've come to learn this, like, let's say I'm tilling the field, and then a child comes in, and I just want to like take that hoe and like crush the earth with it because I'm frustrated. But to actually,
Because you have to stop.
right.
Yeah.
But to control yourself and keep hoeing at that slow pace, you know, or maybe setting it down calmly and attending to your child for 30 minutes, and then maybe you get 4 more minutes of hoeing back, you know, that takes some sort of an inner peace and just receptivity to what's being, and that's that, like, I guess I would prefer that any day than to having a full field perfectly tilled. I'd rather be a peaceful person.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I am, but like learning that about myself, I'm actually not there yet.
Yeah.
And so I can work on that.
Yeah, and then that makes everything that does happen well, like when you finish tilling the field and you get a harvest from it, it is more obviously a gift
Exactly.
than it was a result of your hard work.
Yep.
You know, and it was, of course, a result of your hard work. But it was
meant to
in
be.
spite of all the circumstances that you thought would make almost anything impossible, which it really does. You can't argue with the demands of a 2-year-old. Like, that doesn't work. They're always right. You must always, you know, provide their needs. And so it is, you kind of live in this realm of like miracle all the time. When
Exactly.
something good happens, you're like, wow,
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And there it is.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that is
And not as a result of your coercion.
not right.
And I think
Yeah.
that's what I felt like in my 20s. Like, wow, I did that. When really it was like, I forced that, you know?
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to learn actually, that was given to me.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I think that's really where art is when you are forced by limitation to produce within extreme limits. And that actually pulls out of you your most of your creativity. By far and away, the greatest art is just bound, you know, by the ceiling and the floor and the walls with all kinds of limitation. Because if you have no limitations, then you kind of just, you know, you can just put anything out there and call it what you want, you know. But if you are limited, it like purges and qualifies and refines what you're able to produce as something uber qualified, uber useful and beautiful. And I feel like that's how all good art comes to be anyway. So it's actually, it's hard to realize it in the moment, of course, but there's no greater artist than you in that moment when you lay down your brush and you go to clean up whatever exploded in the bathroom.
so segueing from that to, I was just gonna, as you were talking, you were reminding me of Tolkien's The Leaf by Nigel.
Oh,
Is that
that's
it?
the one. Yeah.
Can you remind us of that story? Maybe we can
It's been a while.
refer to it in the show notes. But
Yeah, Leaf by Nigel. Well, he dramatizes that whole conflict.
right.
Nigel wants to paint a leaf. He's a great artist, and his whole life he is passionately in love and motivated and inspired to paint this leaf. But he has a neighbor, and I think his neighbor's name is Church.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And his neighbor is a elderly person who is extremely needy. And so Nigel gets interrupted constantly. Every time he sits down to the canvas to mix the paints or to create his leaf, Church needs his help. And you need to read the book to see what happens when he dies. is pretty great.
Yeah.
Leaf by Niggle. We have,
Yeah.
speaking of a niggle, we
But
have
each-
a little
Oh,
baby girl.
there's a little leaf right there.
Yeah.
How many people do you know you would say truly share your back to the land values, or your passion for home-scale craft meat curing, or simply love the multifaceted beauty of a good meal as obsessively as you do? Maybe a handful? At farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we've created an online community of hundreds of omnivores from around the world and a platform for them to learn from and inspire one another. In addition to our major semi-annual hands-on educational event, the Family Pig, here at our Pacific Northwest homestead, over at farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we host a purely digital membership program with an archive of film and textual resources years deep now, for you to dive deeper into your food journey with. And both our classes and online program include access to our private community Facebook page for your continued education and fellowship. We've been told that our classes are life-changing and the membership program unparalleled in quality and quantity. To get a taste of our education, search farmsteadmeatsmith.com and our YouTube channel for our free films, conversations, and downloads. Explore how we and other meatsmiths across the globe may best come alongside you, putting the knife in your hand, article by article, and comment thread by comment thread, can support you in building your home around the harvest. Please head to farmsteadmeatsmith.com today.
How would a new homestead get past the emotional heartache of processing animals? That's a good one.
Oh yeah.
Oh geez,
There's
we're
a
just
lot of
gonna
people
talk
that
forever.
are talking about that. Like
Oh,
when
really?
Yeah. When you posted on the canvas on Instagram of the, speaking of canvases, the pig that you scraped, and you were talking about it as art, and someone was like, "Yeah, I want to think about that." It was a new concept to them.
Yes.
The emotional part and.
Yeah. How would a new homestead get past the emotional heartache of processing animals? Yeah, I think that...
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I remember that comment, and I think that my goal there is to emphasize the art inherent to thankless tasks, the things that don't get the spotlight. You know, like, oh, hi, Therese. Mm-hmm. That's nice. You gonna join us? Hi. Yeah. To emphasize the thankless tasks. And there is no more behind the curtain, pay no attention to that man, task than animal killing, particularly in America. And it's not out of love for animals. It's out of disgust for killing. And the things that are associated with it. Disgust for blood and fear of the unknown substances that might gross you out too much. And then there is I think there is an emotional element, because so much of our interaction with animals is conditioned and shaped by pets rather than livestock. And so the notion that you would love an animal and then shoot it in the head is a very contradictory. That's contradictory. That seems impossible to hold those two things in one brain consistently. You're going to distract me the whole time, Therese. And, and I can only kind of tell you through some of my experience, but one thing for me was experiencing the quote-unquote natural death of livestock. And I think I might have mentioned this too many times before, but killing livestock, an animal that has been genetically tailored to being killed at a certain age for many generations, allowing that animal to expire naturally is no kindness to that animal. Nature is not nice. And so when that animal dies, it is very slowly and excruciating. And, one example I encountered was, some people keep sheep on Vashon, and sometimes they're just lawn ornaments. They're there to clip the grass. And so they will live for like 13 years or 15 years. Oh, wow. And but then they don't call me to harvest them. That would be wonderful if they called me to harvest them, even at 12 years, and it's still a happy, a healthy old sheep. And I don't even think you could call it a ewe, because a lot of these sheep never procreate. But I get called when the animal's down. So they have already been through an unconscionable amount of suffering. And the only reason that we can countenance it is because we are ignorant of the suffering, because it's internal and, she's not objecting too much. But the fact is she can't get up, like at all, so the back end of her body doesn't work anymore. That's the result of a lot of pain. That is going to be accompanied by some lots of shutting down of neurological systems, and it's definitely not going to be pain-free. And then I go there and I put the poor girl out of her misery, and she barely bleeds out because her blood pressure is like a trickle. She on a healthy lamb, when you slit their throat, it's just geysers spraying out because they've got lots of blood pressure and they're healthy. But she's just dribbles out and she goes down. And then upon evisceration, it's like you get in there and you look at their organs and it's like, oh, every little thing is deteriorating to the point of being almost unrecognizable relative to their healthy counterparts. And it stinks. She was rotting while she was alive. So the kill is quick in the context of a harvest, and it is kind. So there's that. That's basically just a very pragmatic, like if you can interject that pragmatism into the time to kill your, whatever it might be, your meat ducks or your goats, kids or whatever. If you can interject that real-time pragmatism, that thought that this is actually a kindness. It really is. And the only reason that you would let them live longer is not for their good. It's for your own emotional comfort. It's for your comfort, right? And I think it's pretty easy for anybody to know that, well, there's more important things than my comfort. One of them is the quick, decisive killing of this animal in the most pain-free manner, because if you approach the kill of an animal you have affection for, as I hope you do for all of your backyard livestock that you intend to eat, that you have affection for them, if you approach that with the reticence born of, oh, I like this guy, I don't want to hurt him, you will prolong the suffering of the animal. So you actually have to approach it with a lot of deliberation and what might have previously felt to you like violence, because you might have to recalibrate the way you think about this. And the most decisive, quick, strong-armed, intentional killing is the best thing.
It's the most merciful
for the animal. It is the most merciful thing you can do. So that's, and the way that has played out in my mind is I don't think about myself. I have to try not to think about myself. So
there you go.
People ask me all the time at a slaughter, like, does this ever affect you? When you kill so many animals, thousands of pigs, thousands of chickens, and whatever, does it affect you? And it's like I can't put myself in the equation. It's actually not about me. It's about delivering the death effectively, and I am the instrument of that, but the object is the animal. That is the important thing. And so I'm going to actually put my feelings in the back seat for this greater good that is more important than the way I'm feeling at that moment, and execute this well. And I think I had that whole framework provided for me when the first animals I killed, because it was in the context of a job, and I'm a really good employee. And so I definitely feel the obligation to execute my duties well and my employment well. And so I had that framework when I first killed a lamb, but I was already committed to it. And, you just don't want to unduly regard your emotions and mistake them for the reality of the situation, because that can be at the great cost to the animal, to the livestock.
Well, some of the best work that we all do is done when we forget ourselves, right? And we don't let our emotions take their improper role.
Influence, yeah. Well, and that's the crazy thing about it is, if you feel a great deal of reticence because you have an emotional connection to the animal, you will betray it big time. You will feel like the most cruel human in the cosmos if the death doesn't go well, right? Because of that reticence caused by your emotional attachment. So it can betray you. It can betray you. You want to
work it
just
all out.
put the animal first.
Yeah,
I mean, that's really what I'm thinking. Put the animal before yourself. And what that means is quick, decisive kill.
Yeah. So work out whatever hang-ups or hesitancies that you have ahead of time. And then when you have the knife in your hand, that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
You're not working that out in the moment, because that needs to be done before then.
Yeah.
And once it's go time, it's go time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you almost have to look at yourself outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Like an out-of-body experience, kind of, in a way, because there's just a couple times that I've delivered a death when I'm too involved, as you say. Then it becomes about me, and it goes poorly, but you want to be able to put that other thing ahead of yourself.
Yeah. It has the right to rest.
She's our latest podcaster. What about the idea of an animal as an art canvas?
Oh, right.
Which is kind of a extension of that. I mean, at some point, it ceases to become a live animal, and then maybe it doesn't cease. I don't know. What's the continuum? It's a live animal, and then somehow it's food, and food is a culinary art, but at some point, like let's say it's on the finished plate, and you're at a high-end restaurant, and you're eating this work of art, right?
Right.
But then, was it in the kitchen that it was work of art? Was it on the butcher's block? Was it on the harvesting field, the grass? The farmer put in his labor. I don't know how much longer we're gonna be able to do this with her. I'm really excited, but it was art the whole time, right? Or did we just need to rethink it that way?
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like, you can't push that line back too far as to when the art begins. Okay. It is definitely in the farmer. It's definitely in the slaughterman. And it's just unfortunate that so many of that is hidden. Much of that is hidden from our view. And I would argue the only reason that we don't think that those things are artful is because it's hidden from our view. Not because it is inherently ugly and certainly not inherently cruel. And that's where the art of the abattoir actually comes in. And that's why I love European, historically at least, styles of animal slaughter, is that even on a semi-large scale, the slaughterman is very artful with the way he arranges the carcass.
Right.
And I think it's a throwback to when butchers would actually more go to wholesale slaughtermen and pick up whole carcasses. And so there was this imperative to make the carcass beautiful, to appeal to the eye of the discerning butcher, who would then take the carcass and retail it out of his shop. And so the abattoir had this imperative to display his craftsmanship and make it evident, right? And so there's this beautiful tradition, and we've talked about it before, of how they drape the caul fat around the legs of spring lamb, and they display the liver and the lungs, so you could tell how long it's been hanging by deducing the oxidization of the liver and the lungs, and you could really deduce freshness that way and quality. And a lot of that is lost when that stuff is not subject to scrutiny of any kind. It just becomes efficiency. And that's what we have in America, where the slaughter is unfortunately, tends to be an artless thing.
Yeah.
And there's lots of exceptions. I mean, guys
Yeah.
do excellent work, even
Yeah.
if it isn't beautiful to the untrained eye.
Uh-huh.
Like I love watching, finding videos of guys working at a small USDA slaughterhouses or something. And there's this, because I'm so in the task itself, so familiar with it, it's really easy to see where exceptional skill shines through that would otherwise be, pretty invisible. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I guess if you're going to, I get the objection that conceiving of the pig as a canvas makes it an object subject to my vision that I impose upon it. But I go back to the metaphor of cultivating. Like, if I am going, and art itself, if I'm going to make this pig food in a way that vindicates its sacrifice, that doesn't profane the gift that is a living being for my sustenance, then I'm going to be receptive and bound my tastes, bound my desires to the parameters of the pig. And which is not really when you do that, when you make that call, you find it's not a boundary at all. You've just expanded things more than you can imagine, because ultimately your tastes and your likes and dislikes and what kind of sausage and what kind of lean pork chops or whatever you like to get out of the pig are extremely circumscribed. They're so narrow. And I just know this from doing this forever that, wow, I thought pork had like 3 flavors, right? It's like, no. When you open/limit yourself to the boundaries of the pig, and you are docile and receptive to what the yield of the pig is, then it expands your horizons far beyond anything you could have conceptualized without that initial limitation, And by limitation, I mean, like, I'm going to limit myself to what the pig gives me. So I'm going to scald and scrape. Pig gives me skin. We're got to figure out how to eat the skin, how to use it culinarily. And I'm not going to trim off all the fat. I'm going to try to use that. I'm not just going to toss all the offal. I'm going to try to use as much as I can. And when you do that, you're not so much imposing your vision on the pig. It's the opposite. You're being receptive to the gifts of the pig. And your act as the agent, carving the carcass and creating cuts and cures it is not just, it's not coercive. It's cultivating. You're cultivating the raw material that is suggesting to you how it ought and could best be used.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I think of it, which is probably way too much, but
no, that's a great summation. This conversation will be continued in a forthcoming Part 2 episode. Thanks for listening, and peace be with you.